This theme park just challenged us to stay for 25 hours straight. And to make it harder, we have to ride every single ride. But the country just hit a record-breaking heat wave. And that's not the only problem. But if we pull it off, we get a trophy. That's worth it, right? First, we actually had to get into the park. And it turns out 2,000 people all had the exact same idea at the exact same time. And the line to get in is already insane. So before we even entered the park, we were already in a queue. I thought this would be the longest line of the day. Little did I know. After 40 minutes, we made it. Ticket finally scanned, wristband on. All right, we're in. Let's touch some grass. So why are we doing this to ourselves? Well, Toverland is turning 25. To celebrate, they are keeping the park open for a full 25 hours straight. 1 hour for every year. And every 5 hours, the park switches things up with new events. But enough about that. Let's actually get on a ride, because getting in took long enough. The plan was to beat the crowds to the first coaster, but after that line just to get in, I was scared we had already missed our chance. We are heading for the first big one, a launch coaster you ride like a motorbike. And there's a reason it's first. It runs just one train, so the queue builds up fast. There's no cover either, and I did not want to be baking in that line later in the day. Turns out, the gamble paid off. Looks like I made the right decision. It was pretty much a walk-on. So, we are riding Booster Bike. It kicks off with a punchy launch straight over a hill. Then you take a big sweeping turn over the entrance plaza, followed by another one that drops you down, hugging the ground. And then a run of small hills back to the station that throw in a bit of airtime. It's quick, but a great start. One ride down, and it was the one that built one of the longest waits in the park. But grabbing my bag off the ride, it hit me. I should really get a locker. I did not want to drag this heavy thing around for a full day and night. So I headed back to the entrance plaza, towards the lockers. And my worst fear came true. Every single one taken. Okay, so the lockers are full. I'm gonna check the other ones, but I don't have much hope, honestly. But Toverland has a second set, over by the old entrance. So we walked halfway through the park in the boiling sun. And those lockers are full as well. We'll just have to carry this heavy backpack with us the entire day. Which sounds like a disaster. And for most of the day, it was. But come midnight, not getting one turned out to be the best thing that could have happened. So with the bag on my back, I headed for the newest part of the park to knock out some rides. And there was a reason. This area barely has any shade, so I wanted it done before the sun really got going. This is Avalon, home to the biggest coaster in the park. But that one I'm saving for later. I've got something special planned. So instead, I started with the 2 kiddie rides. First up, a carousel called Jumping Tuna. I feel ridiculous doing this. Yippee! All things considered, the breeze is really nice. Then I picked up my bag and my shame and went straight for the other kids' ride. A little drive through Merlin's magical garden. My chariot awaits. I was already soaked and the sun beat down on us the entire time. The tour takes you past talking mushrooms, a workshop and whatever this is. Then the parachute tower. You get assigned a seat, but we got lucky with ours. It gave us a view on some work in progress. The tower bounces you up and down while Merlin warns you about dragons, but we had something better to look at. It doesn't look like much yet, but that whole field is about to become the biggest Halloween experience in Europe. That's something to come back for. We're only 2 hours into the challenge. I am soaked already. It's so hot, it's oppressively hot. Despite that, I set off for the big wooden coaster. But on the way, I ran into some friends and got pulled onto the swinging ship instead. Honestly, it was a nice change of pace, because the breeze really helped cool me down. And we got a fun back and forth going, each side cheering at the top of every swing. And then came one of the best decisions of the day so far, an iced coffee. It cooled me down and gave me the energy to push into the rest of the day. Because now it was finally time for the best coaster in the park. And in this heat, it was blazing through the track. This is Troy. Troy is the ride that put Toverland on the map for coaster fans. And with good reason. It is one of the best wooden coasters in Europe. Off the lift hill, the first drop sends you into a steep twisting plunge, straight into the iconic horseshoe turn. From there you get thrown through turn after turn and little airtime hills. Then one big hill that leaves you floating. And a flyby right past the station. This thing is absolutely relentless. And the hotter the day, the better it rides. We were in luck. With the second big coaster done and the temperature still climbing, it was time to head indoors. These halls are where Toverland started, so they mostly focus on kids. For the anniversary, they even put in a roller skating rink. But come on, it's way too hot for that. What they also have is a coaster though. So that's the first one we do. It is a junior coaster shaped like a train, and the first drop actually picks up a lot of speed. Then it just keeps turning left, slowing right down at the top of the turn, to the point where it gets a little uncomfortable. After a straight section and a few more turns, you are back at the station. And while I was on it, I spotted something I never thought I would ride.
I feel so stupid doing this. So absolutely stupid.
I barely fit. Surely I couldn't sink any lower than this. Turns out I could, but that's a ride for later. This caterpillar just kept going and going. And in my shame, I tried to justify it by wondering if it technically counted as a coaster. It's got small hills, alright? By now I was getting hungry, but I figured I would knock out a few rides I kept walking past first. First, a mini drop tower. It was closed, and not for the last time either. Then the water slides, which are the one ride I can't get on. And that's just because I'm too heavy for it. But then I walked right past the newest ride in the whole park. A little kid's truck ride. And this one, I could get straight on.
This is like newest ride at Toverland. I feel ridiculous even riding this.
It drives you past one of Toverland's mascots. A giant pie celebrating 25 years. And a shed with a frog in it. And with that, it was finally time for lunch. I wanted to start with something healthy, so I went for the build-your-own sandwich. The line looked short, but that was deceiving. 30 minutes just to place my order. Then another 30 to actually get the food. Little did I know, this was a sign for things to come. But it was worth it. These sandwiches are a great option. Now with a full stomach, we were closing in on the first check-in. But while we were still here, I figured I would pop into the funhouse first. It has got your typical traps. Moving floors, silly stairs, and a slide to top it off. And speaking of silly stuff, next I would knock off a ride that always seemed a bit sketchy to me.
This ride always felt so wonky to me. This is like the ride I'm most nervous about.
It is a dynamic Ferris wheel, with seats that dangle and spin freely.
And you can spin it. It's actually going to spin by itself.
After dancing around the tree, it lifts you up to the top while the other side unloads, and then does the whole thing again.
Looks like we're done. Yep, we are done.
From there, I went straight to the classic merry-go-round. And of course, I picked the spinning seat.
Gotta basically make things fun for ourselves, right?
But I wasn't done spinning. Right next to it was a spinning pirate ship. No queue, so I hopped straight into the back row for the breeze. It was short but sweet. One more off the list. And now it was time to check in for the first time. Back to the entrance plaza.
Okay, we're 5 hours in. I checked in for my wristband. And I've done one thing that I normally never ever do. And I bought a hat. It is way too warm. So let's actually look for some cooling.
And I had a few ideas. First, we went back into the halls, because there's a wave swinger in there. I wasn't expecting much from it, being indoors and all. But...
oh, that's so good. This is so good. I found my magic. It's this. It's the wave swinger.
I was not expecting to love an indoor wave swinger this much. But here we are. But this weather really called for water. And Toverland has two great water rides. First, the log flume.
Not bad, but we can do better.
So I headed to the second one. And Toverland had a surprise waiting. To beat the heat, they brought in soaking hours. And they weren't lying. Except...
as much as I want to get soaked, this is insane. This queue is unbelievable.
But I went for it anyway. I wanted to experience what Toverland had actually put on for us. So we were in for the long haul. An hour and a half later, we boarded the boat. And it was about to happen. You see, these rapids have a water curtain that normally shuts off as the boat comes through. But not this time.
Toverland promised us something. We're going to get soaked. We're going to get soaked.
I can't be out. I can't be out.
Oh,
Het muisje nog, hè?
oh, so good. I needed this. I needed this. They were not kidding. I am soaked from head to toe. Great for this weather though.
Since I was already wet, I figured I would double down and head back to the log flume. Except,
This queue is crazy.
and I did not want to wait that long. So I had a plan. There was something about to happen that I figured I could use to skip this line. But I needed to kill some time first. So I went to check on the mini drop tower again. But it was still closed, which was not looking good for the whole ride everything goal. So instead, the teacups. I had seen people riding them earlier, but it had just been too warm to put in the effort. It still was. But we would have to ride them sometime.
Like, this is going to be a lot like work. But see if we can get a good spin going.
They spin pretty easily, though I needed both hands to really get it going.
Okay, I think we got it. Nice way to unwind a little. Okay, good enough for me. It's too warm to work like this.
And with that one crossed off, it was time for my plan. Because the parade was about to start. And I wanted a spot early on the route. Ideally one in the shade. The parade was going to be a big one. They were combining every parade they run across the whole year into one. Honestly, I'm surprised they let it go ahead at all. It was way too hot for people to be out there dancing in full costume. It kicks off with the two park mascots. A first glimpse of the new octopus animatronic, pirates on a ship blasting water, and even Merlin turned up. Then came the Halloween float, which is a really strange thing to see in the middle of summer. The Ice Witch Morgana and her warriors, the sunken pirate crew, the vampires from Unmasked, who would be back later tonight, and even the circus. And with that, the parade was done. So it was time to act on my plan, and rush to the log flume. So did it work? Kind of, I guess. The line was shorter, just not as short as I'd hoped. Turns out I wasn't the only one with this idea. But we were committed now, and the wait was rough. After a full day of heat, the hull had turned incredibly oppressive. But we got our boat, and off we went. The log flume is called Expedition Zork. It opens with a few turns and a lift hill, and if you know European log flumes, you know what's coming. You are turned backwards for the first drop, which honestly looks more spectacular than it feels. But then comes a genuinely unique gimmick. Partway up the lift hill for the main drop, the log turns itself back around. I have never seen that on any other ride. You finish the climb, reach the top, and get sent down the main drop. And it's refreshing. Perfect for a day like this. A few final turns, and you're back. Now it was time for the next block. I scanned my wristband and actually got changed. I really needed a fresh shirt and dry socks. This is where the party got started. And it's also where the event started to show its first cracks. Because the park wasn't just open for the challengers. Anyone could buy a ticket. And that was about to show. But first, I was getting hungry. It was way past dinner time.
And I know exactly what we're going to eat.
Because I wanted some of the most cursed dishes you have ever seen. But getting them was going to take a while.
Oh no. The line is insane. Everyone is wanting to eat now.
For the sake of these dishes, we would just have to sit through it.
It will be worth it, I promise you.
It took over an hour just to order. Then another 30 minutes to actually get the food.
So I'm super excited for this.
Introducing the bami salami and the freaking donut. If I get sick, that's on me. First, the bami salami. It is a deep fried snack with noodles inside, topped with slices of salami.
Not bad. Not bad at all. Now for the biggest abomination in history. Damn, this is disgusting. No.
Then the freaking donut. I'll do my best here. The donut part speaks for itself, but it's filled with a Dutch mincemeat sausage, drenched in mayonnaise and curry, with some onions on top.
Who even comes up with this, man?
Getting dinner took so long, the sun was setting. And there was something I really wanted to ride during the party block. But it had to wait a moment, because I spotted another kiddie ride that had opened back up. It is a water merry-go-round that shut earlier in the day, because it was just too hot for kids to be sitting out on it.
Close to a nice ride on a kiddie ride. Where else are you going to get this?
And with that done, it was time for the ride I had been most excited for. But this one came at a terrible cost. You see, they turned the spinning coaster into a full disco. Flashing lights, music blasting, but there was one big problem. It was only running one train. And with a line this long, getting my ride in was going to take forever. And near the end of the queue, we could hear it. The line had taken so long, we missed the fireworks. I would have loved to see them, but at least I was in good company. It was close to midnight when we climbed the lift hill. Everything was pitch dark, which honestly made the light show even better. The twisting and turning of the vehicles made it a disorienting ride, and a truly unique experience. And just like that, day turned into night. Missing the fireworks stunned, but it turned out I would see a different kind of fireworks later that night. And as the night block began, the wind started picking up. But first, I was thirsty. I really needed a drink. The restaurant from earlier still had a crazy line, so I figured I would look inside the halls instead. And there was another reason to head in. Originally, they planned laser gaming with the vampires from the parade, and that was something I wanted to see. Only, it had been too hot inside the halls all day, so they changed things up. But the real problem started here. The first food point I tried was already closed. Only 3 were still open. The restaurant I had just left, the one in Avalon that was packed for a pub quiz, and a tucked away spot in the halls. So that's where we went, only to be met by a huge line.
All I want is a drink. No way.
The line was just too long, and I still had to check in my wristband. So that became the priority. We started the walk back to the entrance. Now, during the night, 12 of the biggest rides stayed open, 10 of them outside. Keep that in mind, because those rides were the whole draw of the night. We checked in, and the DJ was still going. We took in the vibe for a moment, before we went to find out what happened to the laser gaming. Turns out, they repurposed the kiddie horse ride into a laser game arena. You rode the horses holding a laser gun. It sounds cool on paper. In practice, it was some of the lamest laser gaming I have ever seen. And definitely not worth the queue it had picked up. Besides, I was still thirsty. And on the way to the entrance, I spotted a frozen cola stand with a decent line. I just didn't want to miss the check-in, so I walked past it at the time. When I came back to the frozen cola stand, closed. Everything was closed. So I gave up and headed back to the hall to get in line. But on the way, I was met by a haunting tune. The vampires had risen and were waltzing through one of the halls. And when the music stopped, they went in for the attack. At least they had enough to drink. So I got in line at Mamouche for a drink. And here, everything went wrong. The line wouldn't budge. There were 2 employees, clearly overwhelmed. The food was ready, but took ages to serve. The receipt stopped printing, and they needed a full restock of drinks. It took me 2 hours to get a drink. And I bought enough to last the rest of the event. So everything Toverland had planned just fell through. And there was a reason. They really underestimated how many people would stay for the night. They were staffed for 2,500, but there were close to 5,000, which explained the lines from earlier too. From 7 p.m, everyone who bought a normal ticket started pouring in. The park had been fairly calm all day, but now it was packed. And given the heat, I honestly get it. But at least the rides were still open, right? Well, that was about to change. I was in the queue for the log flume, since after getting the drinks I was close by, and the coasters were sitting at 90 minutes. And as I looked out the windows, flashing lights. Oh no. I went straight outside and saw the worst thing that could have happened. A thunderstorm was rolling in. The wind was picking up, the sky was flashing, and almost every ride shut down. In no time at all, the rain came pouring down and everyone scrambled for shelter. But with a proper thunderstorm hitting the park, normal shelter wasn't enough. We all had to go inside the halls. So there we were, a storm tearing through the park. And it turned out the night got difficult for a reason beyond just being tired. With almost everything closed, it got boring. There was nothing to do, and the storm wasn't going to let up until 4:30 in the morning. And remember when I said not getting a locker was the best thing that could have happened? Well, it turns out Toverland forgot about the security system on the lockers. Every single one just reset and sprung open. Imagine leaving your expensive gear in there. I was so glad I never had to deal with that. Meanwhile, I was just staring at empty boats drifting past on the log flume, Zork taunting me from above. Eventually I did run into some friends, and we chilled a bit, waiting for the rides to come back. And around 4:30, it was time. We spotted Booster Bike reopened with a 5-minute wait. Let's at least do something. We got up, walked over, and it was 30 minutes already. Annoyed, we just rode the river rapids instead. No one else was dumb enough to do that in this weather. And with that, the final 5 hours began. It was morning. I got my wristband scanned, and breakfast was starting to be served. My reservation was a little later, because I had plans for Phoenix. Remember that something special I had been saving Phoenix for? I wanted to get an early ride in and watch the sun rise over the park. But Phoenix didn't open with the rest of the rides. So the plan was already falling apart. So I figured I would settle for the next best thing, Troy. But just before my eyes, locked up. Troy wasn't going to open for the rest of the morning either.
So, what does any reasonable person do in that case? Ride horses.
At least it was a ride I still had to cross off. And as I got off, the app showed Phoenix with a 0-minute queue. Was it really about to open? I headed straight over. And apparently, so did most of the park. It was like everyone had been waiting for this exact moment. Resigned to my fate, I joined the queue. And after some testing, the coaster opened up. Eventually, I got myself seated at the front, ready for an early morning ride on Phoenix. Turning out of the station, you come face to face with the Ice Witch Morgana, this time transformed into a dragon. Then you start climbing the lift hill. It was a pretty cloudy morning, so honestly, even if Phoenix had opened earlier, I doubt I would have gotten the sunrise shot I wanted. From the lift, you get flipped upside down and dropped to the ground. Then over a hill that sends you flying, straight into another inversion. The turn after that is incredibly forceful, and after a night with no sleep, you really feel it. Then you float through a roll over the lake and back to the station. That was an excellent way to wake up. But I still had time to kill before that very special breakfast, and 2 more rides to do in Avalon. So, the Skyfly. I'm not going to waste your time on this one. Even with an outer seat, I could not get it to flip.
Wait, that was super disappointing. I tried, but I had no energy. So, I'm going to resolve that right now.
Because it was finally time for a very special breakfast. On a ride I hadn't done yet. Merlin's Quest. I grabbed the breakfast Toverland prepared for us, got a boat to myself, and off we went. A gentle boat ride, just enough to get some energy back. We had wraps, a muffin, some chocolate bread, orange juice, and a banana. I was set. Time to finish this challenge and ride every ride I still hadn't. There were a few rides left to finish the challenge, and since we were close to one, I went to check. But no operator. It was still closed. So I turned around and made my way over to the dreaded ride I had been missing all day.
Oh my god, I spotted it move. Is this the time? Are we getting it?
So, remember the ride where I sank even lower? This was it. The kiddie drop tower. Turns out the seats are, well, made for kids. I squeezed myself in, but then the lap bar still had to click. And after some pushing, I was set.
I don't care anymore. I'm in the kiddie drop tower. Yippee! It hurts my stomach, man. Here we go. Yay!
After an entire day, we did it. We finally rode the ride I hadn't seen move for almost 24 hours.
I did it! I did it! One last ride to go.
But just to make sure no one can call me out on it, we made a stop at the interactive walkthrough. You grab a wand and shoot at targets scattered around the house and garden. A simple walkthrough, with a few hidden targets to find. And with that out of the way, we walked over to the last ride I still had to do. A spinning tower, where you pull yourself up and let go for a slow drop back down. But when we got there, no luck. It was closed. It wouldn't open until 9. So we had a bit of time to kill. And since we were close to Avalon, you know exactly where we went.
It is past 9 and there was still one ride I had to do.
But would it be open? Yes, it was. I rushed to the entrance and got straight on.
Alright, we're at the top of the final ride. Way to do. Let's go. Whee! That marks Toverland completion. And that leaves us with just one last thing.
We rode every ride, and we stayed at the park for 25 hours straight. It was time for my victory walk to the entrance, to collect my trophy. Isn't it beautiful? 25 hours of insanity, all leading to this.
We have done it. 25 hours at Toverland. That was insane. All in all, it was a really fun day. Despite the weather, despite everything that went wrong, it was still a blast. I had a really good time. So, next up, Germany trip. See you there.